this type of advocacy work takes real courage and generosity. You're going to invest in things that's not going to pay off. You're going to put your time, money, energy, resources all on the things that you believe in. You're not going to get a penny back, but you do it because it's the right thing to do.
Welcome to Tell a Better Story, a series that features athletes whose purpose goes beyond their sport. Jinghuan Liu Tervalon is a runner and advocate shaped by her experiences as an Asian American woman.
I grew up in China, in a northern Chinese city, Xintai. Went to university in Shanghai. Like a lot of people my age, coming to America was one of the dreams. I went to a good university. That was one of the pathways laid out for us. So I came here right after university to go to graduate school. I was at Kent State, and I started running right after I had my first. He's now 15, his name is Sam. I started running because I all of a sudden find myself to be a single mom in a new country. I didn't have a community around me. I was in a heartbreak. So to deal with that heartbreak, I started running. I found it the easiest to, just lace up and go for a run and feel better about myself.
What does running mean to you now, then?
Running means it's a means for greater purposes. It's a way to bring social change. It is a way to create space for many, many marginalized groups. Yeah.
And how do you think that you arrived at that, given your whole journey? There's a lot tied in there. Really simple, powerful statement, but there's a lot tied into where you grew up, the Chinese culture, immigrating to America, the challenges that presents, and you've really powerfully found your path through that, not only successfully for yourself, but then now creating a space to advocate for others.
Yeah, it's it has taken many steps. Like I told a lot of people, my husband identifies himself as Black, and being married to a Black man did not automatically make me into an activist. It took a lot more than that. In the past, I really took my freedom to movement for granted. And I thought running is the most simple, egalitarian sport, right? It doesn't take a whole lot. You don't need a whole lot of equipment. You just lace up and go, right? Without thinking, there are people who don't have access to a space where you can run. There are people who can't really move around freely because their safety has been under threat. And I had been taking that for granted. So that was a real turning point for me. Another turning point for me was this incident in February of 2021. It was the height of anti-Asian hate. And I have read a lot about, hate crimes against Asian American seniors in the Oakland area, in San Francisco, even in LA in the downtown area. And I thought, it's an issue somewhere else. It doesn't affect me. Yes, feeling very empathetic about it. It is my community. I didn't think it was going to happen to me, yet it did. I was running in my area, in my neighborhood, on some of the streets I always run with, and verbally attacked by a woman who was walking on the same side of the street. And I realized was racialized because she used words like ugly face, sweaty pig to my face, and she didn't use the same words for other people that was running on the same street. It was very sobering, making me realize where you live does not protect you from such anti-Asian hate. Your education doesn't protect you, your profession doesn't protect you, your house, your income, your cars, your clothes, nothing protects you from that. It made me realize I have a responsibility to speak on behalf of my community, to talk about these issues that harm all of us. It took a lot for me to get here, but I hope it's never too late to do this type of work. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And where do you hope that takes you in the future? Or where do you see this evolving into?
I'm hoping more people see Asian Americans in different ways, right? We can be doctors, attorneys, engineers. We can also be runners. We can be athletic as well. We can be creatives. We can be actors and musicians. People not only see and give us space in all different industries and different life paths, but also people see us as leaders. People see us as advocates and activists who speak out on issues, who quote unquote dare to lead.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm first generation Chinese on my father's side.
Yeah.
So I have a bit of an understanding
Yeah.
of how the things that it's going to take to advance the type of change that you're speaking of. Frankly, it's sometimes in conflict with how we're raised and the culture, keep your head down, and and how that's supported in the media, in Hollywood, through policy throughout American history.
Yeah.
How do we, what have you found that inspires you to kind of rise above those obstacles and find your way?
Oh, a lot of people have inspired me. Our mutual friend, Jordan Marie Daniel, now she goes by Jordan Whetstone. She's been one of my mentors and inspirations. All the things that she has done for her community have greatly inspired me. Another friend of mine, Alison Desir, she's another inspiration. If I think back in history, all the fight that Black people have had in this country, all the fight that Asian Americans actually have alongside them, those are all things that we don't talk often enough about. I think I've taken a lot of inspiration from my contemporaries, from people who work in the space, and there's so many more that I don't know about, and hopefully, Mark, from your work, people are gonna know about. Yeah.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yes.
I certainly hope so. We're certainly trying to do our part.
Yes.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
So you mentioned, I didn't know all the names that you mentioned, but Jordan is an Indigenous woman, very inspiring one. I've had the privilege to get to know her. We've spoken about the Asian American experience, the African American experience. All of those experiences are unique in their own way, but there's a lot that bonds us, I guess.
Yeah.
And I love what you said earlier about how advancing change in the AAPI community is not just solely the responsible of Asian Americans. It is how we can all bring together our individual struggles to create a greater change.
Yes.
How do you see that happening?
Oh gosh, one mind at a time.
Yeah.
Yes. So I was actually talking to a mentor of mine at the Coca-Cola company. Her name is Pam Stewart. I asked her, how do you keep on fighting for so long? Policies go back and forth. Progress is not linear, right? One thing that she really inspired me to think about is don't measure your success by policy change, but by how many people you can convert into allies, into fellow advocates, into the sport. They welcome trans women into the sport. There's so much to be done, and we're gonna need, brands. We're gonna need more allies into the space to work on it together.
What is it that you think it is about running or sport in general that helps unify people around this message? When we first started out and we were absolutely nothing, I connected with this gentleman named Shannon Booker, who's from Atlanta.
Yes.
And he was so gracious to give us the time of day and share his story with me.
Yeah.
and he's just I shouldn't even just say just, like he's one man who saw running as a way to bring people together and create positive conversation and dialogue. And in addition, and not just the African American experience. It's certainly the thing that inspired him, but now we see through his new platform bringing together all sorts of different causes and opportunities to create change. So what is it you think about running and sport in general that can create the platform and the space for people maybe to put down their guard and maybe think about things differently?
Because it's so physical, because you go through that pain together. There's a thing about training for marathons, right? You go on long runs, 18 miles, 20 miles, you just talk. There's nothing else you do but to talk to other people, right? Otherwise, it's just too miserable.
I don't talk when I'm running. I'm sucking wind, so I don't have the energy to talk, but I'm glad you do.
Well, that means you need to run a little slower, a little easier, right? When you go through that pain together, it's such an incredible bonding experience. There's a book called Leaders Eat Last. Adam Grant actually talks about how trust is a physical process, right? When you go through pain and when you come out on the other side, when you release a lot of oxytocin, it is a natural bonding experience, naturally bonding experience. And running is the perfect opportunity to do that. When I'm on a long run with a friend, all things come out. I will talk about work, I will talk about my kids, I will talk about my husband, and sometimes the things that other people also tell me, I'm like, that's TMI. I did not need to know, but thank you for telling me. Even a stranger, they will tell you all kinds of things if you go on a long run together. That's one thing that really make people trusting and build further trust to each other. And that's the way of building allyship, right? How much do I trust you? How much do you see me as one of your own, right? Running is just such a natural platform to do that. And also, with running, there's a sense that we gotta help each other, most people, right? It is a competitive sport, but I've seen the most competitive as also the most loving people. It's such a dichotomy, right? People want to, kill each other out in the races, but in training, it is lonely. You only have each other to lean on. Only people who have a similar background like you, they have a family, they have a job, and they're out here training for a marathon. You guys are the only people that would understand each other, right? You lean on each other. That's another reason why running is such an effective space to build friendship, to build relationship. There's also the saying, oh gosh, I forgot who said it. She said for racial justice work to be transformational, it has to be relational. It cannot be transactional, right? I work in the corporate space. I've seen firsthand how mandatory DEI training does not work. You push something onto people, people automatically reject it. There will be backlash. But if you put people naturally in their environment, have them do sports, run, relationship will naturally form. And that's how changes happen.
Yeah, you can gain a better understanding of who the person is outside of what you see on the surface. And as much as all of us would like to not judge, we're kind of built that way, I think. And I think it's a fantastic perspective.
You see who people really are after 20 miles together.
Well, I wouldn't make it with 20 miles. But I certainly understand the analogy for sure.
It's the challenges that we go through together that binds us.
Yeah, I think that's such a great point. It's the struggle.
Yes.
And there's a particular struggle that as runners we inflict on ourselves.
Yes.
That's a whole nother conversation for another day. But life is a struggle.
Yes, life is
Corporate
a struggle.
corporate life is a struggle.
Yeah.
Being a parent is a struggle.
Yes.
You know, there's so many struggles that people face.
Yeah.
Do you think that we can cross that bridge? You know, it's like, so if we talk about if we talk about advocacy through running and trying to inspire change through running or any other type of athletic endeavor, and at the core of it is this, you know, whatever you could be powerlifting, you could be, you know, doing anything else. Like there's a struggle there.
Yeah.
That hopefully everyone can relate to in a way that builds those relations you're talking about.
Yeah.
Can we build that bridge? Can we get that bridge going?
You have to start with believing that possibility, right? I think so. You look at the youngest generation, Gen Z. Well, no, sorry, they're not the youngest. The youngest is the Generation Alpha, Cole's Gen Alpha. Sam is Gen Z. I look at their leadership in fighting climate change. I look at their leadership in holding brands accountable, holding corporations accountable. I think it's possible. And for you to be effective, you kind of have to start with this belief that we are going to progress, that real progress is possible. Maybe not in your own lifetime, but it eventually will be.
So where do we, or in people, you know, in a general sense, go wrong? Because I think if you were to sit down with most Americans and say, do you believe this is possible, you know? And then now they might be coming from it, they might be coming at that from their own perspective and their own agenda. Yeah. But at least if you just start with the point of, we can bridge that gap, most people would say yes, I would think, if you ask them the question.
Right.
In real life, however, it doesn't materialize that way.
It's self-interest, right? It's self-interest. It's also what they call NIMBY, not in my backyard, right? You feel like that's someone else's responsibility. You feel like that's someone else's problem, someone else's sacrifice to make. When a group that's traditionally enjoyed power and you bring others in, and we all have this scarcity mindset, right? The group that's always had power will feel like power is being taken away from them. So absolutely there will be resistance. But, you know, again, we always start with small things, and the most effective way for change is always relationship and love. There are many, many times I really just want to smack someone and shame them and put them in their place, but it doesn't work. It doesn't work into bringing them in. There's an African-American professor too. She has this idea of calling people in instead of calling people out. She had a New York Times op-ed talking about this idea of calling people in. Explain. Instead of saying, you did this, you did wrong, look at you, how shameful, tell them, yes, this is possibly wrong and unfair, but show them how they can be right, treating them as an ally and giving them love. You know, it's very natural for marginalized groups to feel victimized, right? We have been wronged, we have not been advancing, but standing in that space and holding on to that does not help change happen. You have to sort of, almost like being a bigger person, right? In order to create the change, you have to give love first, right? Make people feel like, oh, I can make mistakes. I can't go into a place where I'm so afraid to say the wrong thing. Is this person a she or they or him, or, you know, should I say I'm on native land or should I not say it? You know, a lot of people get stuck there. And if you always slap them for saying the wrong thing, doing the wrong thing, they will never be a true ally. We have to truly call them.
It's such a great point. As I've been doing this work with ACTIIVST, it's been one of the most difficult inner voices. Is like, and I'll be honest with you, I'll obsess over it sometimes, and Google, am I using the right terminology in this email or in this conversation? And I do find it paralyzing sometimes. However, what I've learned is just to be curious, and just to be open to lifelong learning, and that I might not always get it right, but as long as I'm always coming from a genuine place, a place of care, a place of love, then I might not get it right, but it'll be okay. It'll be okay.
Yes, curiosity and a learning mindset is the key. Yeah, just like running, right? I've been running for 15 years. There's still things I'm learning, right? What's the right mileage for my body? Now I just turned 40. I'm gonna have different training than when I was in my 20s. Your body changes, your need changes, and running on the outside, you don't see it as a technical sport, but it actually is, right? Lots of things you can do to improve your running efficiency, your economy, lots of drills you can do, hill sprints, all the different workouts, threshold workout, lactate threshold workout, all kinds of things. You never stop learning. And the moment you do, the moment you're no longer struggling, then you stop making progress.
One of the things that I really have struggled with throughout my life is having a sense of identity, because while I'm first generation Chinese on my father's side, my mother's Italian, so you might not look at me and say that there's a.
I know, I can tell.
I used to get growing up, it was like inevitably when I meet someone at some point in the relationship, and maybe they think about it instantly, and then they find the courage to ask the question of, "What are you?"
Right.
Which is totally fine, and I've become comfortable and proud to answer that question. But when I was 12, it might not have been as fun. And for a long time, I envied people who just this is who they were, and they were, and it was very clear and very consistent. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but I always envied that in a way, because that's not always how I felt. But then I found this comfort that I'm just constantly learning and evolving. And that means I'm not the same person that I was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, or maybe 2 months ago. Because I learned something that was somewhat transformative, hopefully along the way, that made me a different person. You might be grounded by a set of core values, but you're constantly learning and evolving. And do you think do you think that something along in that space is the secret sauce to helping us evolve as a society?
Yes, learning and self-discovery. I was on a similar journey. I came to this country as an immigrant, right? And having grown up in China, I'm Han Chinese. Han is over 95% of all Chinese people. So, I never thought along racial lines. When I first came to this country, I would hear things like, this is racist and stuff like that. And I always thought, why is everything always about race? I have asked dumb questions like that. And then I realized, this is how American society has been organized. It is along the racial line. I've also overcome this idea an immigrant does not have any claim to this country. Even the first 10 years of me living in this country, having a child, becoming a parent, I always thought this is someone else's land, someone else's country, partly because, Asian American history is not taught in American public schools. There are only 19 states right now that mandate some sort of AAPI curriculum, right? We're not seen as Americans. So as an immigrant myself, right, it was also a very easy message to digest. I didn't see myself as American. I just thought myself as an immigrant. Not that I plan to return to my home country, China, any day soon, but I felt like I can't speak about certain issues because those are American issues. I was naturalized years ago. Even that didn't change my mind. And until after a lot of reading and talking to people and learning, then I realized we were actually made to feel this way. We were made to feel we're perpetual foreigners. It is a very common stereotype of Asian Americans, right? Partly because our history has never been taught in this country. We were responsible for building the transcontinental railways, but when it was finished, nobody celebrated our accomplishment. We were brought here as hard laborers to build railroads, to be part of the gold rush in California, but nobody celebrates and honors and steward that history. And also, 3/4 of Asian Americans are immigrants like me. I did not get an education, a K-12 education here, so it's no surprise that I don't feel connected to that larger history. Also, the term Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders covers so many different diverse groups. So it has taken years to embrace that identity as a political opposition, as a group identity, and to fight for it and to bring more visibility to the issue.
One of my favorite images of all time is Tank Man.
Oh God, my husband was just talking about that 2 days ago.
Yeah, so Tank Man
Yeah.
stood in front of a line of tanks in Tiananmen Square
Yes.
In protest.
Yeah.
And I'm inspired by it for a lot of reasons, but it makes me also think about you and go, where does your fight come from? Where, like your fight from within, where does it come from?
That's a hard question. Probably from my mom. My mom is the oldest of the family, a fighter too. She has 3 younger siblings. She did not have the educational opportunity. She was born in the 60s, and she wasn't even able to get a high school education. But she was essentially a matriarch. She helped, raise her younger siblings with my grandparents. I think that the idea that I'm here for a reason, that I have responsibility towards others, that's probably, I picked that up from my mom. Yeah.
And what do you hope your children pick up from you?
Oh God. They're gonna cringe when I say it. My 15-year-old. I think with my kids, I think courage and generosity, right? This type of advocacy work takes real courage and generosity. It's the courage to make sacrifice. It's the generosity. You're going to invest in things that's not going to pay off. You're going to put your time, money, energy, resources all on the things that you believe in. You're not going to get a penny back, but you do it because it's the right thing to do. An activist means that you speak and you fight for your community and not just for your own self-interest. There are issues that you stand firmly behind, that you believe in equality. And once you believe in equality, you believe in equality for all the marginalized groups, people with different abilities, the LGBTQ plus community, trans especially, and outside of your own class, outside of your own race, outside of your own family, obviously, you extend yourself to them. You bend backwards for your community. And Jordan has always done that, has always been my role model. Yeah.
She's incredible. When we first met, we had a conversation. One of the things that we connected on We connected over Instagram, right? That's how things happen these days. And let me back up a little bit. Sorry. So when I was starting this whole project, we needed to come up with a name for it, and we landed on activist. And I gave some thought to the fact that that word can sometimes has a bad stigma attached to it, right? I prefer your definition that you just articulated, right? But unfortunately, I think in the media and maybe in other contexts, it can be seen as extreme. And those extreme examples are probably appropriate relative to what those individuals are fighting for and the intensity around it.
Yeah.
But we're aspiring to create an inclusive environment through this platform. And one of the things that Jordan and I connected on was we landed on an activist is an athlete advocate, right? That's what these two lines represent. That's why we respelled the word to put the I's together and to say, you know, looks cooler, we think. And then these lines represent the athlete advocate. And she arrived at the exact same two words to define her Running with Purpose program, of which you're a part. So I guess maybe my question in all this too is to ask, do you think we can inspire more activists, more athlete advocates, more advocates by further advancing, you know, your definition, which is sometimes contrary to what gets portrayed more widely?
I think Jordan's journey is a really good one to think about too. She broke out because she ran the Boston Marathon with handprint here, right? She wouldn't have gotten that attention if she was not radical, extreme, right? Sometimes you go there to start having a voice, but then in order to be sustainable, you have to do things that are more sustainable, right? There's so many things that she does behind the scenes, like having the wellness webinars to people available. It's unglamorous day-to-day work, right? That's just what you do, right? You have moments where you have to make a statement in order to grab people's attention. Now that you have their attention, okay, what's the real message, right? And again, this is advocacy and activism work is not glamorous. It's real work. It's like running an ultra marathon with no finish line, with no one cheering on, with no one handing you a medal at the end. There's no finish line, right? It's a moving target. You do it because you believe in it.
Yeah, and it brings us joy to do it. Right?
Yes.
So there is a little bit something for us, like there's joy in that work.
Yes, when you find your purpose, the unglamorous work, the day-to-day grind brings you joy. That's our ultimate reward, is us in touch with our own purpose.
Yeah, and that's a beautiful way of framing it up, I think. So my last question is, you used radical to describe Jordan, and you're wearing it around your neck.
Radical necklace.
Yes. What's the meaning behind the necklace?
You have to be radical to bring in change. I was branded as radical at some other workplace. People thought I was too radical for speaking on Asian American issues, for quote unquote exaggerating, making an issue out of a non-issue. It's a way of silencing one's voice, right? So this is me reclaiming that voice.